Everybody. I am pleased to welcome C.W. Anderson, former ECW star and WWE star, to the program. C.W. Anderson, how you doing, man?
Doing wonderful, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. I guess, let's just start from the beginning. How did you break into wrestling?
Um, let's see. It was actually by mistake. I was working a job when I got to playing college ball. I was drafted to play minor league baseball. Went to college instead, playing college ball, and had a job over the summer. And saw a buddy of mine at a McDonald's. He told me he was doing a little. We got talking. He told me he was doing a little local independent stuff. We went into a show. Got there early. Got in the ring. Kind of rolled around and kind of got hooked. It just went from there. Started doing a little local independent stuff.
Were you a fan at all growing up?
I wasn't for a while. It took. My little brother used to watch it all the time, and I didn't really care much for it. I used to watch Saturday Night Live. It was during the Eddie Murphy era.
Right.
So I watched that, and then he got me into it, and then I got hooked on it. And I remember the biggest thing we saw one time, and I actually told Ricky Moore this, that when they came to NWA and beat the Russians for that NWA tag belts, I remember me and my little brother jumped around like, we were school kids, we jumping around like little kids because they had just won the tag team belts from the evil Russians. Yeah, and then I was hooked, man. I started watching it religiously, and I became a fan of Midnight Express, and Bobby became my quote-unquote idol.
All right.
But because I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, so that's where NWA was like one of the hotbeds in the Atlantic area.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you end up using the Anderson name?
When I started doing the indies, I had a goatee, kind of still balding, and I was doing a local show one time, and two guys that were there that were running the Anderson name, they got permission from the team before he passed away, saw me wrestle. I wrestled under the hood, and they got me back there in the back and sat me down and talked to me. Well, the older one was getting ready to quit. And the younger one, who was still 10 plus years older than I was, wanted to know if I wanted to be his tag partner, run up down the Carolina, continue with him as an Anderson. I didn't really think much of it. I was like, sure, why not? So he said, well, we're going to call you, you're going to be one of the Andersons. I had to meet and get the whole thing about the respect and not jobbing the name out and things like that. And they go, well, you need to change your name and come up with something like 3 letters because his name was Pat. He had Ole, he had Arm. I go with a 3-letter name. I could never come up with anything.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the managers on the indie scene used to be my baseball coach, longtime friend of the family, and I asked him one night, I said, I can't come up with a name. And he says, well, just use your initials and call you CW. That's right. So it's true.
Okay. I've heard you mention a few times in various interviews and articles that meeting Ole Anderson was a bit of a letdown. Can you tell me a little about that?
It was a huge disappointment, when I respected both him and Arn for a long time. And, I got to meet Arn at WWE, and when I was at ECW, Paul used to be his manager with the Dangerous Alliance, and he got, he talked to Arn about me using the Enforcer moniker when they come up with the whole gimmick of the Dangerous Alliance with myself and Louis Dangerously and Bill Wild, and Arn was, he gave his approval for me to be the enforcer. He saw my work and was a big fan of my work. And then they said, well, the only one you really had, because I got permission from G, got permission from Arn, and the only one you ain't got permission from for Ole. So they set up a thing down in Charlotte where they were bringing Ole in to meet with me in the ring as a gimmick and give me the permission as his final blessing to use the name. I got back from Japan the day before and been gone for like 3 weeks. I was tired, I was hurt, and got banged up really bad. And I go to meet him. He was sitting there selling his book, and I go to shake his hand, and I said, hey, my name's Chris Wright. He looks at me, he says, so you're that other Anderson? I went, yes, sir. I said, that's me. I said, I'm CW. It's nice to meet you. And he just kind of grew up the same much. One of my friends came up by that time, give him the big, man hug, and he said, oh, my God. He said, 20 years out of business, everybody's turned into a bunch of faggots.
Man.
This was his remark, and I said, wow. So he was supposed to get in the ring with me and do the whole thing of me asking permission and respect, blah, blah, blah. Right before my match, I was Hamrick, the guy, Mike, who runs highspots.com, said, you know, on the ring, he wants to do it by the table where it's put in. He don't want to get in the ring. He don't want to do anything. He said, you know, problems to deal with all night. And just that fight, they just kept on with the problems he was dealing with. He said, I want you to shoot on him. And I'm like, what? You know, like, you know, physically? And he goes, no. He said, on the microphone. So I said, okay. So after the match, I walk over to him, and I had the microphone, and I said, Ole, traveled a long ways to see you coming from Japan. And I hear him, you can hear him on the video, he goes, I don't give a shit.
Oh, man.
And I went, okay. I forgot what the things I said, but I told him about he could be a man or not, and stand up and give me the permission to use the Anderson name. I didn't really care, but I was going to take the name he could only bring to this level and take it to this level. He stood up, shook my hand, and then I did a backstage promo on him and shot on him, and highspot.com sales that video. So basically, if it wasn't for the Anderson name, he would have been a nobody. You know, Ole's not an Anderson, Arn's not an Anderson, I'm not an Anderson. King was the only one. And if it weren't for the Anderson name, but the damn sure won't probably was work rate. I mean, he was a decent worker, but Arn was that Anderson name to Minnesota record what they were.
Right.
He's a bitter old man that I have no respect for.
Is there, you know, have you kind of found that in a lot of the old vets that some of them are kind of like him, or most of them pretty open and willing to accept a younger generation coming up?
That's kind of a catch-22 with that, because most of the vets are very cool, from your Ivan, Ricky Morton, the legends around my area, and then you got your WWE legends are really receptive to younger guys, myself on down. Now, when they get into problems, guys can't tell the story, don't know how a match is put together, and you're in there doing a million high spots, thinking that's what wrestling is. That's a problem with the vet have younger crowd. I remember when I was coming up, I used to sit down beside Ivan Koloff, Walker, and Jimmy would look at them back at Buffalo Express, guys like that, and ask them, teach me psychology. I don't want to know how to do food. I don't want to know how to spell the shit. I want to know psychology. They would light up on psychology is what wrestling is all about. And you can bring that band into that match and make them part of that match. That's where you get the reaction from the fans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about your time at the power plant and why you turned down a deal with WCW?
Two of my students went through WCW power plant tryout, which, you know, for people that are listening that don't know, if you go and YouTube the WCW power plant tryout, 3 days of hell. Guys that went through the Marines at Parris Island. I know all the branches that have gone through this trial, and they said that their boot camp at Fort Campbell is what WCW put us. And it's the worst thing I've ever been through in my life up until me getting those season breaks for my job. Once you made it through that, you went in through training, and at the time, Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker as well, they might went over the trainers, but they didn't really have much instruction. Guys that were on the contract, your natural born killers, furloughs, or whatever they were called, Mike Winners, you know, Axel Rude, guys like that, they would come in, and if they wanted to train, they could. If not, they could sit around with nothing. Structure. The sergeant sitting here trying to teach you guys how to work, and it got to a point where, which was crazy, because once I went through, he respected myself, my buddy Toad, Curtis White, one of my students, I did, along with Lodi. My work is training enough that I was actually training these guys. I'm sitting here wanting to be trained by him, and he was up at work with like Goldberg and some of the other guys, and he'd send them to a ring with me for me to train, which was Lodi. I was there for a year and a half, and at the end of the year and a half, Paul Orndorff and J.J. Dillon came in one day. They wanted to see, there was more of the execs that are there for the recognize. They wanted to see what the power plant had as far as workout. They paired us all up, and all of us had a match. I got paired with my buddy Toad, so I worked on the Indian bid that, and I for sure like to love it. We put on a match. We were the last one that had the guys, all the execs, all the boys at the power plant. They were like fans watching us wrestle. When we and high five. I remember Brad Armstrong. Yeah, I hate that guy's gone. But think forward. He's like, man, that's straight ECW stuff that why you guys should be the way you guys work. But Brad had all the respect in the world. So we're cooling off Paul and JJ didn't come over to me. And they were like, they introduced yourself. And I said, man, we like some of the things you did. You're okay wrestling. But we're interested because you really don't think you're looking awkward. We're not really your wrestling. We're awkward. As much as the people like stuff, your skills, don't everything draw it down. They literally told me everything you can draw it down. Which, 28 years old, I was crushed.
Mm-hmm.
And all on those big deal. Later, they was talks of me getting a 6-figure contract, and that was about the time that my buddy Toad had his tryout with ECW that I came down for. Got my job at ECW there, and I thought, I was still needed better fit the ECW wrestling as far as WCW wrestling.
All right. CW, are you still there?
I'm still there.
All right, yeah, you were cutting out just a little bit there. So that touched on my next question of how you got hired in ECW. Can you tell me about your first time meeting Paul Heyman?
It was in a locker room. My buddy Kurt had that trial with ECW. I didn't want to go. He drove me down there. We had wrestled the Public Enemy the night before. And he said, just come down here, wrestle politics and get a little pot, meet people, this, that, and other. If you don't get in the ring, unless you get this team name out there. Like, whatever. So he goes and has this tryout. And he got through Lodi, through Raven, through Tommy Dreamer. And I go and I'm standing by the ring while I'm catching up with a good friend of mine, Steve Carino, who I had worked on East Mid, pretty much started with me. And he gets through his trial. It was very best. He really did his best to put out there. And Nova looks at him, like, Chris, you got your gear. I'm like, well, yeah, it's in the car. He says, go get it, let's see what you can do. So I run, put my gear on, I get in the ring with time and time, I do a little 5-minute match. And I get out of there, he's like, Nova, good man, you got some good timing. He's going back and forth to talk a minute, and I hear Paul Heyman, who I didn't know, and I watched the yell to Bill Alfonso, and the ring, he said, hey, get the ball down back in the ring, I want to see you work. I look over there, and Bubba, and Yvonne, and Tad, and Paul is sitting there watching the tryout. Fonzie comes over to me, tells Paul, says, Paul, we'll see you back in the ring. I go in there for like the next hour, and I'm working with different guys. The doors open for the crowd to come in, we go backstage, and I go back in the bathroom, and I'm literally blowing up blood because I have bumped so hard and get top up, I don't know what I've done, but I ever spitting up blood. Paul walks in the back to me, walks right up to me, sticks his hand out and says, hey, I'm Paul Heyman, it's nice to meet you. That's Dave Paul, my name's Chris Wright. He said, Chris, where are you wrestling at? I said, well, wrestling Indian, Carolina, blah, blah, blah. I said, but I'm at the WCW Power Plant. He said, they have you on contract there. And I told him quickly that story. If they didn't think I had it, I'm not on contract. I'm just going there to train. He said, well, what's your wrestling name? I said, E.W. Anderson. He goes, I knew it. He said, you look like Arn, wrestle like Arn, you have a busted punch. He gets quiet. He says, Chris, before the show ends tonight, don't leave before I talk to you. Sir, 15, 20 minutes before bell time, Jim Mahler comes up to me and says, Paul wants you back in the back. I'll go in the locker room. And he's sitting there with Danny Dorn, Rocio, and Vito LaGrosse. Introduces me to him, tells me that I'm tagging with Vito. Get Danny and Rocio, you guys the third match. Welcome to ECW. So that's pretty much how I got my job with him. Right place, right time, and right there. That match, and he told Danny Rocio and take 3 finishes and defeat me. And yeah, that was my first experience being Paul, and what I heard, I was like his flavor of the punk.
That's awesome, man. How did the Dangerous Alliance angle come up?
My traveling clique consisted of myself, Steve Greener, Jack Vickery, Louis Dangerous, Tommy Dreamer, and Randy Steve. Where all of us had gotten really close, and the Dudleys were leaving. They were looking for something included, and Tommy and Paul came up with the idea of making it Paulie Dangerous. Like Paul at the time. Well, Louis wanted to be my manager. And we'd sit in a bar at night. He talked about how he wanted to manage me with the Dudleys left. And I told him that would be awesome. He was an idea for it, and they come up with that. They said, well, who do you want to manage? He time Bill Wiles and I had been tagging together and had some kind of great chemistry in the tag. So it just kind of all fell into place. And they give us a dangerous blast, give me coffee, Forcer, Bill Wiles, Billy, and it just took us from there.
All right. I know as ECW was kind of gathering steam and expanding to a truly more of a worldwide product when the TV show on TNN really took off. Mike Awesome left for WCW. What do you think Mike Awesome leaving for WCW as the ECW champion did to the company and its image?
I don't think it did anything to the company's way he went about it, Mike Awesome. He, as the champion, I remember the first time I worked with him, he'd been in the business God knows how long, working in Japan, and I'm sitting here working with a guy, and I'm having a golf match. Dude, he went about it the wrong way. You can't blame the guys for money.
Right.
It kind of pissed us all off. But, I mean, he was a big dude in ECW because ECW weren't big guys. The WCW was the average size because they were all big guys there. I don't really think it did anything. It was more of a, I don't want to say marketing, but I remember when he came back, he wasn't allowed in our locker room. They had to bring him off. And, Wyatt took had Tommy up in fish, and it never did that part. But I don't think it hurt nothing anyway. Took it out of his hands. But, if he didn't have his matches with Mike Dudley or Tanaka, matches were hard at best. Work guys around and things like that on a match.
Honestly, dude, one of my favorite matches of yours is your I Quit match against Tommy Dreamer at Guilty as Charged. You're welcome, man. What do you remember from that match? I think honestly that night was I was always kind of a fan, but I think I was like 13 or 14 at the time. I was always a fan, but that night, C.W. Anderson proved something to me that night, and I became a big time fan after that.
That was a magical night, and it was January 7th, 2001. I had just that was my 30th birthday. I was wrestling with W, and we're still talking about this match to today, 12 years later. We had been building for that for a little while. Tommy got hurt. His idea was always a nice quit match. And he wanted to do it with me. So we had been here a bunch of people. Man, I quit match so hard. It's just not been a good one. I can't go smash it. I don't think you guys will pull off this. Good luck. I remember going into the Hammerstein Ballroom finish where Tommy wanted to wrap barbed wire around my face. They never found barbed wire. That night, somehow I got taken off the truck. We had a hard time looking for it. So that's just the finish. We got the table thing wrapped around. We got something off it. He told me before the match, he said, if we have a good one, I'm going to shake your hand at the end of the match. He shook my hand, but leading up to that, I've been having matches, forced great matches. Like this, very little. We're having small matches. I was getting applause and innovations from the crowd and starting to come into my own. That night, once he shook my hand, I want to sit back and I still watch on camera every now or DVR what I got every now and then. And I remember as I'm standing in the ring, Tommy goes on the way back, and there's 3,000 people out there. I'm following, and there's 10 feet. I'm following, chanting my name. It's giving me a standing ovation for that match. And I'm walking back, looking around, and on the inside, I'm like really emotional because of the appreciation. All of what I wanted to, appreciate my work. But I was a heel of face, and I had done it that night. So I was walking back to the know, it's one of Tommy's favorite matches. They always say that the best high split matches that have been done is that one back in the XL match. It's a compliment, and I appreciate everybody for doing that. And I thank Tommy for giving me that match. That's what I did. I think that's one of my special moments. Not just the match, but after that, man, what really
Yeah, man, I was honestly blown away by that match. I mean, I had always, going into that match, I had always been a huge Tommy Dreamer fan, and, I think you had worked him the month prior, at the Massacre on 34th Street pay-per-view, wasn't it?
I'll be over that night because I was going to put him over night with me.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that was, honestly, that's, if I ever happened to, be watching, old videos or come across it, it's one that I have to stop and watch just because of, just the story you guys told. And it was one of, honestly, for me, one of my, probably top 3 favorite matches in ECW.
Tommy always told me that I was one of his 5 favorite opponents for me there, but Raven, Kristen Law, Dean Malika, got and that list,
Oh yeah, man. I remember, obviously, Guilty as Charged was the final ECW pay-per-view. I remember the end of the show. I think they played a video package, and then they showed the graphic for Living Dangerously. Was the feeling in the locker room and in the company, was that Guilty as Charged would be it, or was there, was everybody still pretty optimistic that ECW could get on their feet and secure another TV deal and stay afloat?
I was oblivious to everything that was going on. I always thought that they were voted. But for the most part, everybody knew that I still wanted to keep that around WCW. And that was a depressing day. I found out.
Hang on, Chris? Chris?
Yes.
Sorry, you cut out on me, man. Bad connection, I guess.
Yes. Okay. I said it was a depressing day when I found out ECW closed. It was one of those that I never thought the company would. I always thought it would be around forever. And at that time, we were all oblivious to the close. There was some that was on the know, but I didn't want to believe. Because I understood it was ECW good.
Was it something where, was it something where Paul or somebody called you beforehand and told you, or was it, was it kind of over for you, like when he showed up on Raw?
Yeah, that was when I knew. When he showed up on Raw, I knew it was over.
All right. I remember you did a shoot interview. I want to say it was with High Spots. You mentioned something about a potential run with the television title. What all was in the works for you before ECW closed?
I was supposed to sign my contract after Guilty as Charged, and they were going to. They were going to take it back. They were going to take the belt from Rhino because he just won the heavyweight belt, put it up for grab, and I was going to win at the next pay-per-view, and it was going to be me and Nova battling. That was what's going to happen next. I was going to have a bomb run.
Okay. What are your thoughts on why ECW closed? I mean, I know there's with everybody that's worked there, they all have kind of different theories a little bit of why the company did ultimately fold. But what's your take on the situation of why ECW closed its doors in 2001?
Probably there was a lot of people were skimming off the top. A lot of the investors. The Steve Carroll was the main one. Big Bradford just making money. Paul not paying travel companies, hotels, things like that. It was just there's so many things you're just never gonna know.
Do you think there was? I mean, at that point, was there any way to ever possibly save the company, or was it just a lost cause financially at that point?
Oh, the company, they had a company, somebody that was going to save the company that wanted to buy it, and they would hold 51% interest in the company, and Paul would have 49, but Paul would say so. He didn't want to do it.
Okay. Can you tell me? I know between your time in ECW and coming back to WWE's ECW, you worked a lot in Japan. Can you tell me a little bit about that and a little bit about the Extreme Horseman stable?
Japan was one of my best memories as far as being a wrestler. Being over there was my best friend. Guys like Loki, Spanky, and all your guys like that. It was great. Over there, the crowd was unbelievable. But Steve and I formed the Extreme Horseman in ECW, Dusty Rhodes. It was. It was one of those things I enjoyed doing. Steve and I traveled the road together, bring Japan together, and being with your best friend, doing this on the road was something you always wanted to do. I love working with the Japanese man, the Japanese wrestler, Joey the fan, and it was those from 2002 up until 2005, 2006, and that was
What can you tell me about the Hardcore Homecoming show? What was it like to get back together again with all the boys and the fans at the ECW arena?
That night was something else, man. It was hot in that room, and I was working with Joe Novich, Chris Chetty, and Mikey Whipwreck, and Tom Dobbins, who was the first one out. And man, the electricity in that place was unreal. It was one of those where you're so emotional with the adrenaline and emotion that you can't hardly contain yourself.
And it's something when you see on the DVD anyway. Joey Styles standing in the ring for the introduction, and everybody's chanting EC-Dub, and even Joey gets choked up. It's did you guys ever think it would still be that big and that special all those years later?
It just shows the truth that it goes to the fans, man. Because those guys, they could have forgot about us like they did WCW, but they did. It's one of those things that ECW would never die.
I agree, man.
Yeah.
What do you what do you think about WWE did their own thing with ECW, and I'll get to a little bit more in depth with that in a minute. But what do you think about like TNA doing their Hardcore Justice stuff? I think Shane Douglas is doing the Extreme Rising. Is it more for nostalgic purposes, or is it truly because ECW actually, even though it hasn't been around for 12 years now, actually has kind of still stood the test of time?
Yeah, I think that's it. It gives them a quick money draw, and they do it with their companies now. So that's why they bring us back.
All right. What brought you to WWE's version of ECW?
Dreamer called me one day and told me they were bringing back ECW, and said to him and Paul think control over it, and I'll be like it was before. My only thing was, my two things were, I'll have to go develop it. He said, no, you and Paul will have control over it, right? He goes, yeah. He said, you're going to be one of our top deals. Be like it was when it was, and that was mine. It was my selling thing. That's fine. Nothing like it was.
What, I remember the initial One Night Stand pay-per-view. Why were you in the audience as opposed to on the show?
I was supposed to be on the show. It was supposed to be me and Slayer again, Eddie and Roach. And they scrapped that match. And they put me in singles. Scrapped that match. Put me in a singles in the dark, to a dark match. Scrapped that and told me I could sit backstage and get dressed and be out in the finish. When they're boss in the ring, I could sit out in the crowd. I said, screw it, I'll sit out in the crowd.
Do you think the WWE guys like Eric Bischoff and JBL and Kurt Angle, do you think having all of those guys there kind of took took away from the moment?
Absolutely. It's just straight up. There's been no WWE involvement whatsoever. Man, you know you got the problem. Watch your guys be there. If your guy's not there, it's more ECW what it should have been. And them being there totally. Like, man.
What what went into the decision to change your name from C.W. Anderson to Christopher W. Anderson?
That was Vince's whole thing. He told Paul that people thought they were going to get confused with CM Punk, and they thought that I would be working for EW Network. What his words? I'm like, this guy's an idiot. So that only was nowhere near. Like, I've been at EW Anderson 1993, waiting for EW Network every time. So it's just being.
In retrospect, with the way that WWE's version of ECW panned out, are you glad you left when you did?
I wish I left sooner.
When at what point for me as a fan, I think One Night Stand 2006, I could tell it wasn't going to be what it was supposed to be, but for you being someone who was there, when did you kind of see that, it's not what I was told it was going to be?
I think after the first night at the ECW reunion, full of it, started bringing in guys from his own, and the guys that had no reason being there. I think from there, I was like, this is going to be what it was. And Steve Richards and myself were so miserable there that it was, it was just one of those things I was glad to be away from.
How bad do you think it hurt? Hurt the image of the new ECW after RVD and Sabu got in a little bit of trouble. But how bad did it hurt the product after they had made Big Show the champion and started bringing in guys like Batista and the Undertaker every week?
Yeah, once it started doing that, it was one of those snowball effects that just kept getting worse. And it was like a train wreck.
All right. Couple more questions before I let you go here. Any appearances coming up that you'd like to let everyone know about?
This weekend I'm in Reedville, North Carolina. Up north, I'm wrestling an old friend of mine in Lodi. And March 1st and 2nd, I'm in Montreal, Canada. You can on my Facebook, facebook.com/ECW-Anderson. It has that up there, so you can find all that stuff.
All right, and lastly, is there anything you would like to say to your fans?
I thank all you guys, ones that like me, didn't like me, at least you watched me wrestling. I appreciate all the cheers through all these years, all the remembering the match, emails that you guys mean a lot. So again, thanks for being fans.
All right, Chris, thank you very much for your time with me tonight. I really appreciate it. I will go ahead and get this all put together, and I'll go ahead and send you a link as well.
All right, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, thank you, Chris.
All right, goodbye.
See ya.